Clock may be running out on TikTok. The popular social media app is now banned for use on U.S. government devices. National security concerns are the reason, but what about the risk China poses to America's economic vitality? Of greater concern may be U.S. corporate dependency on the Chinese Communist Party, the CCP. Well, here with more is Paul Chesser. He's director of the Corporate Integrity Project at the National Legal and Policy Center. Paul, thank you for being with us. So TikTok may pose a security threat, but which U.S. companies are at risk simply for doing business in the world's largest labor and consumer market, and why?
The big one right now is Apple, because Apple's been in the news recently because they just put so much of their production into mainly for their iPhones into these massive Chinese iPhone factories managed by Foxconn, and with China's recent zero COVID policies, that really caused a lot of problems. They shut down production in these factories for a period of time, locked people down, and in something you haven't seen in a long time, there was resistance in China. There were protests at these factories, and it really hamstrung Apple's production, especially going into the holiday season for a lot of their most popular iPhones. So that's one company we're focused on. There's a lot of companies that just want access to that market. We're looking at Disney, we're looking at Starbucks, McDonald's, Walmart, and they're across the spectrum as far as what types of companies they are. Merck, a pharmaceutical company that has a lot of R&D over there. Boeing, which they produce more than half of China's fleet for their commercial airlines. So it's just an enormous amount of dependence from American corporations on access to the China market and also their supply chain.
How about Microsoft?
Microsoft as well. They're not in our cycle right now, so I haven't scrutinized them as much. But anybody who's producing communications devices and those kinds of things is going to have their supply chain go through China. And if it's not through mainland China, which it is, China is constructing this Belt and Road Initiative in which they are pursuing dominance around the globe in production of. They're trying to set up countries that are maybe third world countries to become more dependent on China, and also to dominate the supply chain, not just on the mainland in China as far as assembly and things like that for products, but for access to precious metals, to rare earth metals that are really crucial to the production of these devices. Electric vehicles, those require cobalt, nickel, lithium. So all these, China is looking to dominate the mines and the production of and supply of these metals, so that they will be dominant in those economic areas, and America is not ready for it.
Well, and that's affecting U.S. policy, I'm sure. But Turkish NBA star Cantor Freedom is critical of China's human rights record in Tibet and with the Uyghur ethnics. Now, he wears slogans critical of Nike for using Chinese slave labor, and he says the communist dictatorship runs the NBA. So your thoughts on how corporate dependency on China and profits endanger democratic principles like free speech and human rights?
Right. Well, with the Uyghurs issue as well, Apple's been implicated there with some in recent years with the productions of the screens. There's a company that they said was being produced by a supplier called O-Film that they tied to the Uyghurs' slave labor in the factories in that part of China. Our American corporations have to start thinking much differently than they did. And, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, has been warned about this for years, and he was just so laser focused on producing their products in China that he was just he pandered to the Chinese government. He implicated their censorship practices. When they said remove apps from your app store, he did it. And most recently, when there were protests over zero COVID, he removed only in China was there this peer-to-peer function on iPhones not available to iPhone users. It was only in China. The rest of the world had access to it, and that was because of the communist government. So Tim Cook is learning now the hard way. He ignored warnings in recent years over being overly dependent on China. Now, because of what happened with this iPhone production over the holiday season, he's scrambling to diversify the supply chain into India and Vietnam and other places.
Yeah, when your profits go down, then you look elsewhere, right? We'll see what the new Congress does. Paul Chesser of the National Legal and Policy Center, thank you for sharing your insights. We appreciate it.
Thanks. Good to be with you.